Hello, everybody. This is Pisces, your neighborhood stripper, and this is my podcast series, Surviving Atlanta, a guidebook for strippers. So, let's get into it. I have been in Atlanta for 3 years. Yes, I've been in Atlanta for 3 years. And even though I am out of survival mode, I am still struggling. Okay. Things happened in my life where I ended up having to get a car first, instead of giving myself time because my son had came into town and I thought he was going to be staying with me and I knew I'd have to take him to all these doctor's appointments. So I decided to get a car, and that kind of messed up my whole plan on waiting to get a car. So now I'm struggling to pay those bills at the moment. But what I want to talk about is, well, first let me introduce myself and how I got to Atlanta. So actually, no, let's talk about what is survival mode, first of all, and how do you get there? Well, I need you to not feel ashamed about being in survival mode, because the difference between surviving and struggling is that when you're surviving, you've literally lost everything. When you're struggling, that means you have something to struggle over. So you have something. Now you're just struggling to maintain it. So that's the difference between survival and struggle. And if you're in survival mode, that's where I was when I first got here. When you're in survival mode, you are put in dangerous situations because you're trying to get out of survival mode. You will lose a little bit of yourself, just so that you can survive. And, because those dangerous situations do call for certain characteristics to come out. And basically, you're like, your guard is up the whole time. So what? Oh, and also the morals you once had might be put on the back burner because, for example, you're a stripper, but now you want to hoe because it's going to get you to where you need to quicker. So you're going to have to cut off that moral where you feel all high and mighty or whatnot. Feel like you're better than selling coochie or whatever it is that you feel like you're better than. You're gonna have to put that to the side, baby mama and baby girl, and that's what survival mode is. That's what it does to you. So the quicker you're out of survival mode, the quicker you can get back to who you are and who you were, and put them boundaries back up. Because when you're in survival mode, you find that you have to break down a lot of things that built you up. And unfortunately, that is part of getting out of survival mode. Not everyone has to take that route, but um this is for strippers, and most of the time strippers do take this route. So this is who I am pandering to. If this is not you, um just listen, because somebody you love is a sex worker. You might be able to help them out too. Like, don't dismiss this podcast series, okay? You need to know too, so everybody can know, so nobody is lost in the sauce, and we can get the fuck out of survival mode as quickly as possible. So, I want to give you a background on how I got into survival mode. And you're going to get real into my business, okay? This is real deep. I don't like telling people my business. And if people know me, the people who know me know I like to be private and I don't like to too much tell my business. But congratulations, you're going to get my business in this podcast series. Okay. So how I got into survival mode is that after, let's just say COVID fucked everything up, okay? But honestly, I was thriving during COVID, and our club opened up in East. Well, you know what? I ain't even gonna say where, because then y'all gonna start really getting in my business. So I'm just gonna say, um, clearly I'm from Texas, so we're gonna just say these are Texas clubs. I'm not gonna give you exact location, but the club that I was working at, which was out of town for where I lived, it had opened early, and it opened earlier than any of the other clubs. Even in the big city clubs, they were open before them. And so I actually moved out there because it was better for me at the time. And maybe a year later, they switched our managers up, and then they ended up switching again, and that manager ended up firing me. I don't want to go into detail on what happened because I'm not allowed to, but I will say I did sue that club. But the reason why, so I got fired from that club. I had to, like, that was my main income. Like, I was making so much money at that club. It was beautiful. I could make 1,000 on a Saturday and 1,000 on a Friday. Like, you could literally make 3,000 on the weekend, and that's all you had to do was work on the weekend. And they had every day opened. So, uh, that was my main income, and I had to go to a different club, and that club wasn't the best. Okay, it was sort of kind of racist. Okay, I'm being nice. But yes, it was very prejudiced and whatnot. And it was also closed on the Sunday, Monday, and then they decided, oh, we're gonna close on Tuesday too. So I'm missing out 3 days of work, and I'm not making as much as I was at the other clubs. So now my income is going down, and now I'm starting to struggle with paying my bills. So I worked that club maybe for a year, and I ended up getting fired there too. And I can't go into detail on that one either. Or maybe actually I could. I didn't sign no NDA. The first one I signed an NDA. This one I did not. But I'm not going to blast them out for the fact that I don't want what they call it. I don't want them suing me for dang, I don't know why I can't think of the word. Maybe I need to smoke. I'll remember it. But anywho, y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Put it in the comments if you know what I'm talking about, okay? Because I don't know why. I just went blank. So, anywho, back to the story. I sued both those clubs, actually. One of them, I got a big payment. The other one, I did not, because that club was smart. But I'm not going to tell you how they maneuvered their asses out of, of justice, because then other clubs are going to try and do the same thing. And I'm not giving y'all that gift. Okay. I'm not giving y'all that club. Y'all should just be a good club to begin with. Pay your girls. Stop stealing their wages. Okay. Anywho. So when I got fired from that place, I went to Shreveport in Louisiana, and I worked at Wild Orchid. I believe that's what it's called. I worked at Wild Orchid, and I loved Wild Orchid, and I loved Shreveport. Okay. Around this time, I actually had to um, call my son's father and tell him to come get his son because my car had just been repoed. It got, well, technically, I gave it back. I gave it back to them. Um, but they call that a repo still. And I, it actually happened on the day after no, it happened on the day of my son's birthday. And, we didn't get to do what I wanted us to do. But I did call his dad and I told him he has to pick him up because it was almost, school was almost over anyways. And I knew around that time my lease was up and I'd probably be gone traveling, trying to, get my money up and not have to worry about my son. Um, and if he's being taken care of. So, and, re-up my money and get back on track. So that happened and then I was so like it was so hard to pay my rent. It was so hard. And it was also because of the Ubers that I had to keep taking back and forth from work. And let me tell you, I stayed about an hour away from Shreveport. So like not even just the Ubers. It was really I was doing Turo. So I was like renting Turo out $300 a week, and I was barely, it was like I was losing, but I was gaining, but I was losing, but I was gaining. And that can be very frustrating because it's like you're there and then and then you're foot in and then you're two steps back, and it's just let's just say I was in a dark place after that. I was down to my last. I had put all my stuff in storage, and until they decided to kick me out, I stayed in the building and stayed in my apartment until um, I made enough money to take a bus and go to Atlanta. And that's how I got to Atlanta. I came to Atlanta with $1,500. Woo! That's crazy, right? $1,500. How do you come to any place with just $1,500, let alone Atlanta? I didn't know Atlanta was so expensive, but apparently. So what I did before, like while there was literally nothing left in my house, and before I decided to book the bus ticket, I made this plan. I printed. I have some printables on my website that I created as a traveling stripper for traveling strippers, and I used that on top of Dancers Resource to figure out what clubs I was going to try first, and if there were any clubs that um, I didn't need a permit for, um, and I also used my financial printable, also my bundle, so that I could save up again because it's a budget sheet and a money saving challenge that's a part of it. And that's what I used before while I was planning. And I got a bus ride out there for $100. And I had booked a hotel, but the hotel had like their power was down, their register was down or something like that. So they couldn't book me there. So I had to switch. And I went to Motel 6, which was surprisingly nice. There was like patios. They had patios at the Studio 6, y'all. Patios. It was like for real small apartments, and I loved it. Okay, I did. And even though they were just a wee bit expensive, um, that's where I stayed. I booked for like 3 days. You book one day so that you can get some rest, and so that like when you work the next day or the day of, depends on what time I had gotten there, because I was still planning. Depending on the time I got there, I didn't know if I was going to be able to work that same day or the next day, so I booked 3 days, so that I could have the money, at least make the money the second day, and pay for any longevity after that. The morning of the day I was supposed to, leave out. That's kind of how I did it to save money. Because, when you book like for a month, I mean, not for a month, but for a week, it adds up. And so instead of doing that, I booked 3 days at a time. And if I had enough money, I'd do the same thing 3 days at a time. And I go down to the register and I'd be like, okay, can I get 3 extra days? And they're like, yeah, you did. And that's how I did it. I'd go to work, I make the money, and I do 3 extra days. I go to work, I make money, I would do 3 extra days until, so the club that I decided to go to is Wax, because I was gonna go to, I think it was called Foxy Ladies at the time, and they said that you don't need a permit to work at Foxy Ladies, but it turns out they were closed. They were closed. So I went to Wax, and Wax was open, and it had liquor in it, and it was pretty. It was lit. It was packed. Money was made. Okay, money was made. You didn't get naked at Wax. You don't get naked. And I kind of like that. And I was working there until I was able to get a license. So a license for Fulton County is 300 and I think it's 275, sorry. 275. So 275, and then each club after that, and any other club you get hired at, because it's really for the background check and the fingerprints and blah blah blah. But the other clubs you end up working at, you'd have to pay $50 every time. Not 275. 275 is one time thing. Do you have to get it done yearly? Honestly, I don't know, because right now I am a strokers girl and I'm not in Fulton County, so and I don't really work at any clubs out there anymore. So I couldn't tell you, because I didn't have to renew my shit. Any clubs I tried out there, I didn't stay. I guess I didn't like them that well, but I ain't tried them all yet, so stay tuned. So the transportation that I used while I was brand new was bus ride. Well, obviously I technically did bus rides maybe 2 times to go back and forth from uh Louisiana and Texas, and back and forth basically, because I did have pets. I had 2 cats, and I said had because the female cat passed away from cancer. May she rest in peace. Her name was Marissa. Um, she was actually a cat that I took in for my friend that was also a dancer that I met at one of those clubs I talked about earlier in Texas. Yeah, so not only do I know how to travel by myself alone on $1,500, but I also know how to travel with cats, with pets. And I feel like it's easier to travel with what do they call it? Those companion pets. the medical pets. I forget what they call them, but I think it's easier to use them, but because so many extra charges on the hotels, um, the Airbnbs, B fees are like way out of pocket. So what I did was before I went on the bus ride to Atlanta, I put my two cats in a cattery or pet lodge is what they call it. Um, and I like an overnight stay, basically just overstaying. And that's what it's called. It's called a pet lodge. And so I let them stay and they were out there for a month. I let them stay for a month. That costs about $1,000 to $1,500. I can't quite remember how much it was, but I remember that I paid a good $1,000. I know that much, and I feel like maybe I paid more, but I did on try to see when it comes to pets. I did try first to see if anybody could watch them, and a lot of people are not into cats. And one person was already watching one of the dancers' pets, so they couldn't do it for me. So I put them in the pet lodge. But the cheapest way I would say is to see if somebody could, watch your pets for you while you're traveling and trying to get your shit together. So, when I stayed out there, I stayed with a few people that I will be talking about because here's why you need to learn how to survive Atlanta. It is the people, not the town. It is the people. And as a stripper, aka as a sex worker, they will prey on you. It's like they smell it. They smell the shit. And like these predators are good. They're good at what the fuck they do. They've been doing it for decades and they're good at what the fuck they do out here, okay? They smell you a mile the fuck away. You know what they call us? They call us floaters. And there was a customer that told me, hey, so when we be seeing me and my girl, we was walking around, we're like, let's pick up a girl. So they literally called them floaters and they were looking for people that were walking around with a luggage. And then they would ask that person with the luggage, hey, you need some help? You want to come eat with us? You want to stay with us a little bit? They slowly get that in there. Hey, you want to stay with us? And then they get them in the car and then they go on the place and, they, whatever, I don't know after that because, it's some predator shit, and predator shit is always creepy, unlawful, sometimes, most of the time, criminal. So he didn't really tell me what the fuck they did. So I can't tell you either. But I assume because he couldn't tell me that it was some criminal shit. Anyways, so back to what I was saying, because we're going to get to the people, okay? I'm going to get to the certain type of people that you need to be aware of and possibly stay away from. But here's where I'm going to tell you where I stayed. I did stay with some people. And then I like to call them predators, okay? I stayed with some predators. And I saved up enough and I figured out a way to stay. I stayed in Pad Split. If you don't know what a Pad Split is, it's something like an Airbnb. I also stayed in Airbnbs, by the way, but it's something like an Airbnb, except for they check your income, they do a background check, and you got to stay at least 30 days. So it's more, I would say it's more homely, and nobody's allowed to go in and out. Like, you're not allowed to have guests. You're not allowed to have kids. You're not allowed to have pets. So I used Pad Split. I actually love Pad Split. I was in like 3 different Pad Splits. I don't know why I can't say Pad Splits 3 times. Pad Splits, Pad Splits. Okay. I couldn't do it. But anywho, I would do weeks and I would always end up doing like 2 weeks in an Airbnb because the Airbnbs were always booked and busy. Like you'd get like a 4 day and then somebody book one day and then the next 3 days was free, and it was just, you just can't book like that. You can't book like that. And you can't live like that. You can't keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth because you have so much stuff on you already. Like I had this big ass luggage, so big, and I just had one. I tried to fit all my stuff in one big ass luggage, and then I put everything else in storage. Um, but yeah, 25 minutes in. But yeah, that's how I plan for the unknown, and that's how you too can plan for the unknown. Because life is stressful, and sometimes you just need a guidebook on how to handle this Atlanta stuff. Because Atlanta, like they say, Atlanta's not a real place. Yeah, and I do love Atlanta though. When I first came here, let me tell you something. I grew up in, and I laugh because you're gonna laugh too. I grew up in a place called the Colonies, so technically we are the colonizers. And if you have any idea, you could just only imagine what the colonizers looked like. Okay, I grew up with a bunch of white people in the suburbs. Now, don't get me wrong, I am cultured because there are other um ethnicities that I grew up around also, but it was majority white people, and that's pretty much where my mannerism comes from. I also grew up in I was raised in East Texas, so I got a little country in me. I got best of both worlds. Call me Hannah Montana. But yeah, call me Hannah Montana. Where was I going? Aw, I lost my track of thought. Damn it. So the clubs that I really wanted to go to, right, is Strokers, uh, Diamonds, and Blue Flame and Magic City. I wasn't sure about Blue Flame. Everyone's like, Blue Flame, they got bullet holes and blah 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 blah, blah. But like, it's just making me want to do it even more. I don't. They're like, it's ratchet, and I'm like, oh, I need a ratchet club. I need a new ratchet club. So I might be going to so I might be going to Blue Flame in the day shift. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. But oh yeah, that's what I was saying. When I first came, so I grew up around a lot of white people. Okay, so there's white people everywhere, behind the counters, everywhere, just everywhere, driving everywhere. And when I think of authority, I think white people. Okay, so when I went to Atlanta, when I came here, it was like I was in Wakanda. It was like going through the trees and, welcome to Wakanda forever. And I was like, oh my God, I love it here. I'm never leaving. Fuck them cats. Yeah, no, I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. There's black people everywhere. Like authorities, almost. I was looking too. I was looking for a white cop. I didn't see not one white cop for a long fucking time. Honestly, I still don't remember seeing a white cop. So maybe I didn't see a white cop yet, but all of them was black. I go to a rental a place. All the people black. I go to the storage. All the people black. I'm like, because I'm used to seeing white people behind the bar, behind the table, behind the desk, behind the. I'm used to black people buying shit, not working. And I mean, I ain't saying black people don't work. I'm just saying, racism. Racism. Shit. But yeah, that was this episode of Thank you for listening to Surviving Atlanta, episode Survivor Mode. I hope this helped. Come back to hear the story of the people, of who you need to survive from the people in Atlanta. Come back to hear about the people you need to be looking out for in Atlanta. Also, I just want to add, once you get out of survivor mode, because you're not going to be there the whole time unless you just give up on yourself, okay? Don't give up on yourself, number one. Number two, do everything to get back to yourself when you get out of survival mode, okay? Because just because you turn into one person doesn't mean you got to stay that person. You can always go back to being yourself, because when you feel safe, you feel safer to be yourself. So just don't wallow in survival mode, because you get stuck in survival mode and that will literally be your outcome the rest of your life. You're going to get things and then it's going to be taken from you in a blink of an eye, all because of your mindset. Because energy does travel. We do manipulate energy with our own energy, with our thoughts, with our words. Another way to get you out of survival mode: meditate. Do meditation. You can. When I started meditating, because I know people, when they hear meditate, they're like, "Oh, meditate? I can't be still. I can't do that." Let me tell you that meditation does not mean you got to be still and clear your mind. Even though, yes, the point is to clear your mind, but the other point is to relax yourself, your body, and other reasons are to raise your frequency. So there are many ways to do it. You can do it through music. You can make your own playlist. You ain't gotta listen to all that new age spiritual music. Make your own playlist and meditate to it. Dance to it. Dance is another way. Reading a book. I find reading a book is a great way to meditate for me, because your mind goes blank while you're reading. So you got to go back to where you was at just to read it again, just to also keep going blank. It's like a meditating thing. Like your brain is just blah. And that's exactly what it's supposed to do. And that's how it's supposed to be. I also would recommend energy healing. You can easily nowadays go on YouTube and people will pull on your energy and help you with the Reiki and the energy healing. Or you can go to an actual spiritual store and an actual Reiki healer. By the way, I do the Reiki. I am certified. I'm a certified high priestess. Thank you. If you do need a Reiki healer, I'm your girl. I'm sure my links are somewhere around here. And I would say another thing, restore your boundaries. Because we do kind of find ourselves lacking boundaries, forgetting our boundaries because of the morals and losing all of that in ourselves. And so it's hard to, like, once you're in a practice of not doing it, it's hard to get back in the practice of doing it. It's like going to a self before yourself. And now you got to get back to self. You get what I'm saying? But yeah, don't forget to restore those boundaries so that you can come out even stronger. And hopefully never get back in survival mode again, but life be lifing, But you'll have this guide every time. every time. Okay. And hopefully maybe I'll find another one. Maybe I'll um encourage everybody else to start doing guidebooks in their location. But thank you for listening. You have been listening to Your Neighborhood Stripper. This is Pisces. And the series is Surviving Atlanta in Survival Mode. A guidebook for strippers. Talk to you later.